The 1992 Grand Prix season starts in South Africa, under the gloriously sunny skies of the Transvaal. The scene is the historic location of Kyalami, near the City of Gold, Johannesburg. And here at Kyalami, a Grand Prix crazy South Africa is absolutely bursting with enthusiasm at the prospect of seeing the speed spectacle which has been denied to them for so long. They're here in their tens of thousands for the start of what's going to be a dramatic season. The outskirts of Kyalami may not have the sophistication of Monaco, but an intensive multi-million-pound construction project involving a massive effort has produced an absolutely magnificent new 2.6-mile circuit with matching facilities, something South Africa can be very proud of. For the teams like McLaren, the preparation effort has been equally intensive. World champion Ayrton Senna had a sensational start to the 1991 season, but after a 3-month rest in Brazil, he's not expecting to repeat it this year.
I'm under no illusion that we are going to win the first 4 races like we did last year. I think that will be a lot more difficult this year. But the championship, you count 16 races, and we have to do our best with what we have got now until we can have our new car, new engine, up to the level that we could be happy to race with.
Williams, McLaren's chief rival, have a computerized active hydraulic suspension, which Nigel Mansell has been testing in Europe. Nigel's lost weight, he's supremely fit, relaxed and cheerful, and feels that this could be his year.
I start the season, I believe, whether anyone else does doesn't matter to me, what I believe in the strongest position at any start of any one year. Myself, mentally, physically, being focused, the car, we know the car, we've got a similar engine, we've got the same gearbox, the same aerodynamics. The only thing we've got new is the active. So therefore, like last year, we started with 4 new things. We're only starting with 1. So if you like, we've got certainly 70% better chance of getting the job done this year.
Ferrari have completely restructured their team after an awful 1991. Italian Ivan Capelli joins Jean Alesi to drive a new, superb-looking car with a unique double-bottom construction. There's a new boss in Luca Montezemolo. Englishman Harvey Postlethwaite returns as technical director, and there's an atmosphere of purposeful determination, reinforced by the presence of the great Austrian 3-times world champion Niki Lauda as consultant.
All I'm really doing is to be an advisor to Mr. Lombardi, who is in charge, and they all want to do is just to use my experience and see if I can help. So really all I'm doing is watch the whole team performing, and if I see something, I just give my comment. But really, decision is all to Lombardi and the team.
The Big 4 teams are completed by Benetton, who, like Ferrari, have been restructured and now, like all the teams, use Goodyear tyres. For the first time, Martin Brundle, with Benetton, is in a top team. He's hungry for success, but in the young lion, Michael Schumacher, Martin's got a formidable teammate. 26 men start today's South African Grand Prix because, sadly for her and the Brabham team, Italy's Giovanna Amati has failed to qualify. And sadly for everybody, 3-times world champion Alain Prost is not racing today at Kyalami for Ligier. After a thrilling final qualifying session, Nigel Mansell starts in pole position for the 18th time. In fact, he was fastest in every practice session, and his pole lap was 7/10 faster than Senna, who starts alongside Nigel on the front row. So, Nigel Mansell in his 18th career pole position, just ahead of Ayrton Senna, 3-times world champion. Then it's Senna's teammate Gerhard Berger, Riccardo Patrese in the second Williams, the first Ferrari, Jean Alesi 5th on the grid, just ahead of Michael Schumacher in the Benetton Ford. Britain's Johnny Herbert is 11th in the Lotus, and Gabriele Tarquini in the Fondmetal is in 15th position. And bringing up the rear of the grid, Eric van der Poel in the Brabham, Judd 26th place. And it's go, and right-hander. And sure enough, the McLaren has dropped right back and up to the first left-hander. That is turn 4. It's Mansell in the lead.
And this looks like a real tough uphill struggle for the McLaren. Senna is going to have to fight a lazy charge in 4th place.
Yeah, and Nigel Mansell's in a very commanding position now because his teammates can, not deliberately, but make it very difficult for Ayrton Senna to get past. Of course, Riccardo Patrese wants to win this race just as much as anybody else does. There are no orders in the Williams team, but it is still Mansell leading, Patrese second. Senna is in 3rd position. It is John Alesi in the Ferrari in 5th place. In 6th position it's Schumacher, and that's Martin Brundle, who has spun off on the 1st lap in the Benetton Ford. A most unfortunate way for the Englishman to start his career with Benetton. He's looking for success into the turn 3. This is where there is a 4G loading on the drivers, 155 miles an hour at this point. This is turn 4 down. I remind you again, although Nigel Mansell is regarded by many people as number 1 in the Williams team, he is not regarded by Williams as number 1 in the team. They have equal ranking.
Yes, indeed, but there have been a fair bit of head scratching in the Williams team and by observers this weekend because, of course, Patrese, we all expected to go home and spend his winter thinking that, of course, he could easily become world champion this year because he clearly has the ability. But as soon as he got in the car, the person who's been spending their winter thinking like that, you'd expect to be very fired up and go very well. But he did exactly the reverse. And to some considerable disappointment to the Williams team. And now that he's pulling away from Senna, this is the first real spark that he's shown all weekend. He's been substantially slower than Mansell at all times until now.
Now, this is an interesting battle because Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, chasing Ayrton Senna, and just behind him is in the brand new car. And if you get a good look at the Ferrari, you will see that it has literally a double bottom. It's a new aerodynamic development that Jean-Claude Migeot, the Ferrari aerodynamicist, has produced, and it's enabling him to keep up with Senna.
So Senna, who seems, if anything, to be holding that group up now. Senna clearly struggling for speed and now dropped to nearly 3 seconds behind Patrese. Mansell very comfortable in the lead. He's now got nearly 5 seconds, 4.8 seconds. Mansell to Patrese. Patrese 2.8 seconds ahead of Senna, and the two Williamses doing very much as expected, although it was courtesy of Patrese's outstandingly good start that he is not bogged down with the traffic for the time being, but the Williamses showing their tremendous superiority.
And while we ride with Ayrton Senna, hats off to Michael Schumacher, who is in 5th position in the Benetton Ford, because this is the young German. He's only 23 years old. It's only his 7th Grand Prix, and the only people who are ahead of him at the moment are Jean Alesi in the Ferrari, Ayrton Senna that we're with now, Riccardo Patrese, who is second, and Nigel Mansell leading. And in the pits is Jonathan Palmer with Martin Brundle.
Martin, after that excellent qualifying session, bit of disappointment for you. We saw the back end of that spin. Tell us what happened.
It's difficult to know. I was passing Carl Wendlinger, and for some reason we touched, and it's broken the... Get the car back on the road, I had to do a 180 spin, and it's broken the clutch.
Yeah, big disappointment for Martin Brundle because it hasn't been a great meeting for him, his first for Benetton, because he was very much second fiddle to the talent of Michael Schumacher, and yesterday afternoon in qualifying he was just starting to get to grips with the car and was improving. He was a whole second and a half slower than him on Friday than Schumacher. Yesterday he was down to just under 7/10, which was a big improvement, and started to get settled, but he still has a lot of work to do, and he certainly could have done with the time in the car today. Now we're riding with Nigel Mansell. Mansell leading now by over 8.5 seconds, and really very comfortable indeed for him. He will already be nursing the car. No need for him to rush away from the field. He can cut it down, pace himself to Patrese, and be happy, I would think, to go away at about a second a lap till he's got 15 seconds, and then he can really just cruise it and look after the car, concentrate on his system. they're not expecting to have tyre changes today. He'll need the cushion, of course, for lapping back markers, because that won't be easy, but he will make, say, a 20-second lead, will give him plenty of room. He won't have to hurry it. As I say, the teams, there is not a wear problem. There may be a loss of performance, but I should think with Mansell's case, without having to push it, he shouldn't even run into those. So he will expect to go the whole race in one go.
And Mansell is on his 11th lap, fastest lap by Mansell so far on lap 7, 1 minute 20.408, which is of course a lap record on this new circuit being used for a Grand Prix for the first time. Martin Brundle out, Bertrand Gachot out, so there are still 24 runners as Ayrton Senna soldiering on in third position, leads Lacey fourth there. Schumacher in fifth position. Gerhard Berger is again not really showing in the McLaren. It's strange this, how Ayrton Senna manages always to get more out of the McLaren than Berger. There is Berger, and behind him is Capelli. That is Johnny Herbert, and that is out of the race Carl Wendlinger. Well, he is the third retirement.
And Johnny Herbert is having a quite fantastic race in the old Lotus, because he's in 8th place, but more importantly, he's only 2 seconds behind Capelli and the Ferrari, who in turn is hounding Berger. So, in simple terms, apart from the two Williamses who are in a car of their own, Herbert is at the back of the leading group, and in a car that really should not be in that league at all. And Herbert, for a long time, has been a talent that has been ignored by team managers. He showed it last year. He was still largely ignored. Lotus now, happily, are a team that are coming up. They're recovering. They have better sponsorship. They've got a new car on the way. They already have a good engine, and that's made the current difference. But if they can put some proper aerodynamics on them, and I keep saying about aerodynamics, but there have been tremendous advances in the last 2 years on aerodynamics. And Lotus's car is older than that, and in fact McLaren are running the old aerodynamics.
Yes, we're expecting several of the major constructors, as they are called, to produce new cars for the Spanish Grand Prix. Now, you see, the reason that Williams and McLaren and Benetton and Ferrari have a new car, have not produced new cars, is because the 1992 season is started by 3 long-haul races. South Africa, then Mexico, and then Brazil, before the first European race, the Spanish Grand Prix. And quite understandably, teams are saying we would rather rely on the 1991 cars that we have long ago overcome the teething problems of, whilst we're a long, long way away from base. And then they will use the period up to the Spanish Grand Prix to develop their new cars, although McLaren, I think, will probably be wanting to produce their new cars as soon as they possibly can in view of the dominance of the Williams here. And incidentally, the new McLaren is going to have some extremely exciting technical features, one of which is a fly-by-wire control system. The drivers are literally going to be doing most of their driving electronically. It's going to have an automatic gearbox, and Senna going through on the inside of somebody there. It's Van der Poel. And Mansell now is 18 seconds ahead of Patrese. And you can see there, Lacey and Schumacher going inside, Van der Poel to pass him, so is Berger. So now, well, in 7th place, Ivan Capelli. You're watching it, Van der Poel now, there is Berger. Lap 24, and I believe that this is not at all a happy race for McLaren, because I believe it is only the sheer brilliance of Ayrton Senna that is enabling him, as Gabriele Tarquini retires the Fonmetal with the Ford HB engine for the first time in a race. And the young Italian, who deserves a better car and has got one this season, only lasted for some 24 laps and is out of the race. But as I was saying, I believe it's only the brilliance of Ayrton Senna that's keeping the McLaren in third position, because look how Gerhard Berger is struggling behind Schumacher there in the Benetton, who is still chasing a Lacey. The battle for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, that is to say, a Lacey, Schumacher, Berger and Capelli rages, with Johnny Herbert, I think, edging up on them. Yes, his previous lap was faster.
He really doesn't have the equipment, anything like the quality of equipment that these people have, or indeed the two Ligiers behind him. We've got the latest or nearly the latest Renault engine. They've got very much a 1992 state-of-the-art car aerodynamically, and it's really quite magnificent job by Johnny Herbert. I can't stress that too much.
And that's a Ferrari out. It is Ivan Capelli. He's done it. He's just overstressed the Ferrari in some way. And so on lap 30 out of 72, Ivan Capelli joins the other retirees. And we're starting to edge down towards that figure of 11 finishers, which I have in my mind out of the 26 starters. Such is the severity and the demands of the course and the climate and the anti-clockwise nature of Kyalami on the cars and the drivers. And that coming up is Andrea De Cesaris.
Well, it seems that with regard to Brundle's retirement, as ever, there are a few sides to the story. And according to Carl Wendlinger, he was entering the second gear west bank hairpin when Martin came up the inside, tried to overtake Martin's right front, hit Wendlinger's left rear wheel. But at the same time, apparently, Martin was nudged behind by De Cesaris' Tyrrell, and so we saw his Tyrrell off there too. So a combination of factors there.
Mansell has just passed Alboreto, who is 13th, and is closing up now on Olivier Gerhard, who is 12th, and has a bit of a reputation for blocking drivers. Gerhard in the Tyrrell Ilmore. Now let's hope he doesn't get in Nigel Mansell's way, because Mansell needs to maintain the smooth rhythm now that he has got in the lead. I apologise, Olivier. Well, there was a bit of a scrabble there.
And he gave him no room at all, and that was really out of order, because that wasn't too far from having the leader off. He had plenty of warning. He was not looking in his mirrors before, because he continued to fight his battle, and that is out of order.
And in 10 laps, Ayrton Senna's cut the gap on Riccardo Patrese in second place from 9.45 seconds on lap 24 to 3.3 seconds on lap 34. And I don't think Senna's making the McLaren Honda go any faster. De Cesaris, there he is. 32 years old, and this is his 166th Grand Prix, as it is for Nigel Mansell. Out now, that is Katayama, the Japanese driver in his first Grand Prix, driving the Venturi LaRousse, which this year has got its own chassis as opposed to a Lola chassis, which it had last year. There's Katayama, who out of his helmet looks about 32 years old. 38 years old. In fact, he's 28 years old, but he's going well in his first race.
And there is Patrese lapping Mika Häkkinen in the other Lotus, who did not have quite such a happy qualifying time as Johnny Herbert.
Yeah, Mika Häkkinen in 16th place, but much more important is the fact that Senna is now really closing on Patrese, who's going to have, well, he's got the McLaren Honda in his mirrors now, no doubt about that. And Häkkinen waves Riccardo Patrese through. I'm sure he will do the same thing for Ayrton Senna when he sees that famous shape of the red and white front of the McLaren with the yellow blob in the middle, which is Ayrton Senna's helmet.
And shake him up a bit. The lazy off the road, and there is a lazy in a cloud of smoke. We didn't see what happened. Maybe we'll see in a replay.
Well, that certainly explains why Michael Schumacher had moved ahead of him. Maybe we'll get a replay. The lacy looks all right. There's smoke coming out of the headrest of the McLaren, of the Ferrari, and I rather suspect that the V12 has said, thank you very much, that's enough for this afternoon. I'm hot, I'm tired, and I'm giving up. And there is Patrese now. He's coming up to lap Alboreto. If the Italian gets in his way, this could be Senna's chance to close up yet further.
Yes, so now that Senna's in clear air, he was able to go quicker, and Patrese still lapping at 20.1. So Patrese suddenly, with the sight of the McLaren right behind him, has pulled his finger out.
Both Ferraris out then. A sad day for the reformed Italian team. And on lap 44, it is Mansell leading by 28 seconds. Patrese second, Senna that we're with in third position. Michael Schumacher is some 10 seconds behind us as Alesi there walks in. Schumacher in 4th position. Gerhard Berger is in 5th place. Johnny Herbert is in the points in the Lotus at 6th place. Very, very good news that is, because the Lotus team need all the success they can get with this new car. Great news, Herbert is 6th.
Yes, and Herbert also confirming in this race his maturity, because he has been fending off very close attention from Comas and Boutsen from about lap 10 onwards, and that in itself is no easy feat in Grand Prix racing, to drive with somebody breathing down your neck the whole time. It requires considerable cool and experience as we watch the big battle. That is the Cesaris in the pits, and that'll be a big disappointment.
That is Christian Fittipaldi retiring from his first Grand Prix in the Minardi Lamborghini. But Fittipaldi is only 21 years old. He is the youngest driver in the race from Sao Paulo, the same place as Ayrton Senna, and he's got plenty of time. And that is Andrea de Cesaris, and he's obviously out of the race. His first race for Tyrrell with the Ilmor engine is finished. And Patrese goes past the Dallara of J.J. Leto, and now Ayrton Senna is going to have that problem, although Leto, the Finnish protege of Keke Rosberg, is a gentleman driver, and I have little doubt that he will move over when he sees Senna. Leto is 11th, Alboreto is 12th, Hakkinen is 13th, Guterman is 14th, Morbidelli is 15th, and then out of the race goes J.J. Leto as I spoke. Well, it's been a pretty unhappy South Africa for the Dallara team. They're using the Ferrari engine for the first time. The Minardi team had it last year, and now Dallara have it, and it doesn't seem to have brought them any luck.
This is what Senna's looking for, the big train ahead of Patrese. The problem is that Senna's not close enough.
And there is Nigel Mansell leading the race, approaching several cars that he's going to lap. And if you're held up here, as I've said before, it can disturb your rhythm. Well, he's coming up now to Eric Comas in the Ligier, the Frenchman, and he is in 7th position. And ahead of Comas is Johnny Herbert. Now, they are going to be very, very involved with their own fight, and they're not going to be too anxious to let Nigel Mansell through if they can possibly avoid it. They won't be holding him back deliberately. Mansell, of course, has got a colossal cushion of well over 20 seconds. And now there is Gugelmin. Behind Gugelmin is Herbert. There is the Ligier, and there is Mansell.
And Herbert is also lapping back, Marcus. So there is a one lap behind situation, and there are people who are 2 laps behind here. And Mansell starting to go through. Mansell, of course, has all the time in the world to pick his way through this group. He really has no hurry. His lead is 25 seconds over Riccardo Patrese. And we watch from Mansell's onboard camera. There's another one, and really no rush at all.
As we look at Michael Schumacher's Benetton in 4th position, out on his own. That very distinctive nose with the underhung wing, and Schumacher is lapping quick. He's just gone round in 1 minute 20.07, but that's slower than both Senna, than Senna, Patrese and Mansell ahead of him. He's holding his position on merit, is Michael Schumacher. His highest finish so far was 5th position in Italy last year, and he had a couple of 6th places as well. So the extremely confident young German is online for his highest finish at the moment.
Yeah, well, now Mansell's just put his stamp on it, because he's done a 17.9, which was always clear that was going to be easy for him, and he's been taking it very easy out front, which is what puts such a big question mark over Patrese's performance, because Mansell doesn't need to do it, and if he can do a 17.9, I'm quite sure he can go probably a low 17, if not quicker. He just popped it in. He's keeping his lead at 25 seconds, keeping a comfortable cushion, because I'm sure Mansell learned his lesson last year not to go really fast. Patrese has got himself a little bit of a cushion. He's put his own fastest lap in now with an 18.6, and he stays 3.5 seconds ahead of Senna, and I think he's doing the minimum necessary to keep Senna comfortably at bay. But behind, the really good performance of this race for me is by Johnny Herbert, who's still in 6th place, but he's just put his own fastest lap in, and he's put a little bit of a gap between himself and Comas. He's got himself a 5-second cushion, and he certainly has had to work extremely hard for that.
And that is the Minardi Lamborghini of Gianni Morbidelli, who joins his teammate Christian Fittipaldi. So they are both out of the race, and that means to say another retirement. Morbidelli was in 14th position, so we've now got 16 cars left in the South African Grand Prix, with Nigel Mansell on a possible 10 points, Riccardo Patrese on a possible 6 points. Wonderful news for Williams. Now there is Boutsen in the Ligier, coming up to lap Maurizio Gugelmin in the Jordan Yamaha, who is 13th. Renault engine, and you can see in the background behind Boutsen, Riccardo Patrese. So Patrese in 2nd place, 4.6 seconds ahead of Senna now, is coming up to lap Thierry Boutsen in 8th position.
And Senna will be praying that the Renault engine is as good in Boutsen's car as in Patrese's, and that Boutsen is concentrating on what's happening in front, because this is a chance possibly for Patrese to be held up, and that is what Senna needs. Senna, as you saw just in the background there, but Patrese's already passed Boutsen, and that will be a disappointment for Senna, who is just close enough to be able to see what's happening. There's Senna just coming into your picture in the background.
Yeah, and in the Renault pits, Bernard Dudot, who is the Renault V10 engineer, and his colleagues will be watching the monitors, the telemetry monitors, very carefully, because all the leading teams, Williams, McLaren, Ferrari, Benetton, have senders, electronic senders on the engine, which are constantly sending back to technicians in the pits, as Boutsen again unsuccessfully tries to pass Gugelmin, who will have nothing of it as Senna closes on them. And those senders, now there is a retirement. It's Boutsen. Thierry Boutsen, as he shaped up to pass Gugelmin, suddenly stopped and is out of the race. And that means to say that now up into 8th position will go Olivier Griard in the remaining Tyrrell Ilmore. And I'll finish my thought as Senna closes up on Gugelmin, because those Renault technicians will be monitoring all sorts of things: oil temperature, water temperature, fuel consumption especially. That's the Dallara. Well, they're really dropping out now, because that's Pierluigi Martini's car out of the race, and we have already seen JJ Leto having retired. So on lap 70 in this 72-lap race, Nigel Mansell still leads Patrese by 23 seconds. There is the Italian in the Williams. There is Senna in 2nd place, 2.5 seconds behind the Williams. In 4th place, Michael Schumacher is 23 seconds behind Senna. There's no doubt, I think, about the lead and the winner, Mansell, and the 4th place, Schumacher, provided they both keep going. The question is, who is going to be 2nd, who is going to be 3rd? Berger is 5th.
At this stage, he's been on his own for a long time, and driving less than flat out makes it much harder to keep the focus and to keep the concentration. No problem for Senna to concentrate. The physical side will be hard, but he will have been, they've been totally focused on Patrese's rear end for well over half the race now, but he just can't quite get close enough, and he was off time in the traffic then, and the gap's now over 4 seconds.
Nigel Mansell on lap 71, just 1 lap to go at the end of this one, leading by 25 seconds. Vindication not only for his driving tactics and his skill, but for his application to his training program in Florida over the winter, which reduced his weight by 7 pounds. And in 2nd place, Riccardo Patrese, just staving off Ayrton Senna, who is certainly trying. And now Nigel Mansell is on his last lap. You are looking at the potentially victorious Englishman, almost home for the 22nd Grand Prix victory of his career. But far more importantly to him, 10 points in the 1992 World Championship, and the Union Jacks are flying all round this Kyalami circuit. There's 1, there's 2, and that's 10 points for Mansell. If Patrese can stave off Senna on this very important last lap, will be a lead over his chief rival in the championship of 6 points. Mansell nearly home for those 10 points. Having dominated practice, having dominated the race, having put up the fastest lap in South Africa. He won in 1985. This is going to be a glorious back-to-back double, albeit separated by 7 years.
Well, he's done everything right today. No mistakes from Nigel Mansell. A marvellous drive. It's been easy, but he's handled it perfectly professionally. Tremendous win and a great start to 1992.
And moves to the crowd, and he coasts across by his standards to take the checkered flag before a delighted Frank Williams, justifiably so, and Riccardo Patrese takes second position ahead of Ayrton Senna. In fact, where is Ayrton? So, well, he's a long way back. Ayrton Senna finishes 10 seconds, there he is, behind Riccardo Patrese. I can't believe that the Brazilian just decided he was going to give up on the last lap. That is totally out of character. But for whatever the reason, as Michael Schumacher finishes in 4th position, and we wait for the 5th position man to come home, and that of course will be Gerhard Berger, with Johnny Herbert in 6th position. We're now looking at the very happy arm of Nigel Mansell, and there he is. There are the Union Jacks. It's victory for Mansell, victory for Williams, victory for Renault. And Gerhard Berger goes across the line and I think runs out of fuel as he does so. Very, very slowly indeed. Well, that's how close they cut it. And I'm going to stick my neck out and say that that was why Ayrton Senna finished 10 seconds rather than a couple of seconds or so behind Riccardo Patrese.
Nigel Mansell, congratulations on a crushing victory. You were dominant all weekend and during the race. Was it as easy as it looked?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I mean, the start, I don't know whether I made a bad start, but my teammate was very close to me going into the first corner. But I mean, from then on, it was a question of pushing very hard and trying to build up a little bit of a gap and then managing it. Ayrton was pressuring Riccardo obviously halfway through the race because I was pushing quite hard later on and was not going away. And then it was just a question of trying to have a bit of spare time with the traffic, but the traffic was pretty good.
But exactly the sort of start that you wanted to the season.
Yes, I mean, it hasn't sunk in yet. I mean, here we are, the first race, and we managed to get the first win under our belt. But, I mean, Ayrton sitting here is going to be formidable this year, as he has been the last couple of years.
Sensational start, Riccardo Patrese. How did you manage that?
Releasing the clutch and start. I think no magic. I had a good start, and it was very good for me being able to be in front of Ayrton the first lap, because in this track it's very difficult to overtake. So I knew that if I was in his toe, maybe it was a big problem to finish second in this race, because I felt that my car had potential to finish second. So this is the result I wanted after many troubles in practice. I think that I'm quite happy with second place.
We came third, and Williams did the first and second. I think they deserve. They did good improvement from last year, and right now I think they deserve to be first and second. So third place for us, I think it was very good under the circumstance, and I'm looking forward to the new car, with new engine, new transmission, to see whether we can jump forward and catch them and be in a similar situation, in order that the championship becomes more and more interesting, like we had last year, and a good fight throughout the season.
So finally, can we expect changes in time for the next race to respond to the Williams threat?
I don't know. I don't think so for the next race, but maybe for Spain or maybe Brazil. The team is trying very hard. I think sometimes it's necessary to have a result like this, which is not brilliant. It's good, but not brilliant, to push the people that are working, to get them more motivated, to give us more development in order that we can compete with them. So it's early days, it's only one race, 15 to go, and we all have seen last year the fight has been great between all of us, and I think perhaps we'll have another season like that.
So Nigel Mansell commandingly wins his second successive South African Grand Prix, albeit with 7 years between them, from his teammate Riccardo Patrese. 3 times world champion Ayrton Senna, third for McLaren. Michael Schumacher, an excellent 4th in his Benetton, Berger 5th in the second McLaren, and Johnny Herbert a superb 6th for Lotus. With Mansell 6 points ahead of his rival Senna in the Drivers' Championship, Williams lead McLaren in the Constructors' Contest by an impressive 10 points, with Benetton 3rd and Lotus 4th. The 1992 Grand Prix season has begun. In 3 weeks' time, it's the Mexican Grand Prix at an even higher altitude. Can McLaren fight back? Watch it on BBC television.